If you're a real estate investor, there are no more options. That market is absolutely dead. If you're a first-time home buyer, it's not affordable. You cannot find any deals anymore. The whole real estate market is upside down, or is it? I'm here with Jeff Bowman, Knob Creek Property Solutions. Excuse me. Jeff, tell me, am I wrong about that? What's going on in the real estate market where, you tell me that there's solutions, but everywhere I look, everything's too expensive. Investors are having a hard time getting into anything that's cash flowing, having a hard time finding any properties that they can make work to flip. What do you see out there?
I think there's always deals out there. The issue is that people say, well, where can I find a deal? And what you really need to think about is change your mindset with it. You're not really finding a deal so much as you're creating a deal. A deal has to be created. What you can always find are people having problems that in their lives that they can't solve, and they need a investor, they need a professional to come in and really create a solution for them that involves real estate.
So, when somebody has a problem, it's financial. It's some sort of distress situation, whether it's a divorce, financial situation. Maybe there's deferred maintenance out there. So when you're looking for, quote unquote, problem type homes, are you scouring the internet? Are you scouring deeds offices? I mean, what do you do to try to create and find those opportunities?
I think it comes through a variety of different ways. Obviously, you can use the internet. Internet's a great tool. You can also just drive the streets of any given city. You can keep your ear to the ground. I mean, there's so many different ways because life happens. I mean, people are always getting into situations that a problem arises, and all of a sudden they have an asset that they can't tap into their equity for whatever reason. And that's when, for a real estate investor or a person who wants to get involved, putting their capital and skills to work in the real estate market, that's where the opportunity arises.
So I think it's interesting, the conversations we've had is you do find these sort of creative ways, and really, any deal is possible if it's there for the right price.
Yeah, for the right price, and also that's solving the problem.
Right.
I mean, because people they get into situations where they need to get out of where they are. They're in a present position, but they want to get to a future position. And your job as a real estate investor or someone who's involved in real estate is to be the catalyst, create that opportunity for them to go from their present position to their future position.
So I think a lot of people come into the mindset as a real estate investor as only you're looking for cash flow and then hopefully trying to get that appreciation over the long term. But you're saying you need to flip the script, if you will, and actually just become the problem solver.
That's it.
So, right now, in what I see is quite a few real estate investors out there that have renters that are struggling. And, if you go through the eviction process here in the state of Georgia, that takes time. Are there other solutions to make that sort of problem go away?
100%. I mean, a lot of the time you need to not think about every real estate problem as a set course. If you have an issue with a tenant, if you have an issue with a rental house that is not performing the way you want it to do, first of all, you have to take ownership of the situation and say, hey, this is my fault. I put the wrong person into my asset, and now I have to get this asset back performing again. But these are people problems. It's not a house problem. You have to go to people and solve the problem. I always say, be hard on the problem and easy on the people. And if you go into it with that attitude, you can usually come up with a solution that doesn't involve the courts, doesn't involve having to get lawyers involved. I mean, not to rag on lawyers. I mean, I use lawyers all the time, but at the same time, it's a lot easier if you just try and find a solution that takes into consideration the people who are involved.
What's an example of a solution in that scenario?
For instance, there was a couple of years back where I was purchasing a house from a lady who lived down in South Georgia. She had a property up at Stone Mountain, and she had a tenant who had not paid rent in 5 years, 60 months. And she wanted to sell the house to me, and she said, but, you got to do something with this tenant. And I said, well, I've got a great solution for her. Went up to the tenant's door and knocked on it, and I said, here's my checkbook. How much will it pay for you to leave? And she said, $1,000. And I said, here you go, $1,000. And she was out. And she was gone. Didn't have to evict her, didn't have to get any of the courts involved. And then we went in there, flipped the house, and everyone walked off with a nice profit.
So are people just afraid to confront the problem? Is that part of the issue?
I think that might be part of it. Is it essentially, folks, you have to be comfortable with uncomfortable situations. Sure. And anytime that I'm with a seller who's distressed, who has an issue, there's a problem, the first thing we do is I sit down at the kitchen table and say, all right, listen, I got to start asking uncomfortable questions. And you might not want to give me the answers, but you have to. I have to understand
Sure.
where you're at, Mr. Seller,
Sure.
so that I can come up with a solution that's going to solve your problem.
Well, it sounds very familiar on the mortgage side of things. I've got people all the time trying to hide, what's really going on, whether it's on credit or previous bankruptcy or foreclosure, divorce, alimony, whatever the case may be. But in the end, I'm on the same side. I'm trying to find that solution to get them the financing to purchase that home or whatever the case may be. And that brings up the next question. I mean, most first-time investors, most first-time buyers, they don't have the cash on hand to purchase a house. So how do you put together a structure to purchase a home or finance an investment property? What are your thoughts on that?
There's so many different ways to do it because there is, as one of my mentors, Pete Fortunato says, he says, there is no box. What box? Thinking of outside the box solutions. Well, there is no box. You can do whatever you need to do to create a solution for somebody. When I first got started in this business, I did a sort of my version of what's considered wholesaling, but I controlled the property only through paperwork. And I was never the buyer of the property per se, because I told the seller up front, hey, I'm going to find a buyer. I just don't have the cash at this moment. Or I'm going to borrow the money from somebody I know who does have the cash. And every single component of a house, you can find a solution to capture whatever that problem is. If someone is in pre-foreclosure, they need you to move quick, and they might need you to pay off the loan. And hey, look, I can solve this problem. My only problem is I don't have $200,000 in my pocket right now, but I know where I can find it. And that's a solution that you can bring to people that comes with years of doing this. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to get no a lot. Like most people are not comfortable with unorthodox solutions to their real estate problems.
Right.
And as I always tell these sellers, look, don't tell me what you won't do, tell me what you will do. And if you can work through their issues, their problems with their property, you can usually come up with a solution that'll help them out.
So to that point, a lot of first-time investors out there don't necessarily have that network of private investors, private money. Maybe they don't have the right mortgage broker or whatever the case may be. They don't have the right insurance person to actually to insure that particular distressed property. Whatever that network is, it takes time for you to develop. And so what do you suggest? What advice do you give to somebody that's trying to get in and doesn't necessarily have that network of connections yet?
Well, I think there was a gentleman who was here in Cobb County, Georgia. He passed away this past year, Dykes Bodiford, and he had a very good saying. He said, when you do your first deal, you want to partner with a gray hair or a bald head. And I got the bald head part of it, but that's come through years of doing real estate investment. But essentially, if you don't know what you're doing, find someone who does and partner with that person and learn from that person.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate investing, it is a team sport. You cannot do it all on your own. I have countless people I lean on all the time to come up with solutions.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think I don't love to have partners anymore on any sort of the investments that I do. However, my first 7 properties, I had a 50% partner.
Absolutely. I always have partners in one way, shape, or form in any type of deal.
Really, on 100% of your transactions?
Pretty much. I mean, unless it's just a straight, hey, I'm flipping this type thing. Because again, prices these days, I won't lie. I mean, they are astronomical.
Yeah, I don't think you have to lie about it. But so, I think everybody knows about that's part of the problem, right? Is everybody's trying to find an opportunity to get in for less expensive. Now, you do a ton of the work yourself, is my understanding. So, you have to be able to get your hands dirty out there right now. I think is that an accurate statement?
I think that's accurate to a degree. I do a lot less of I don't swing a hammer as much as I used to. But in terms of the down and dirty, I've mentioned this to you before. When I first got started in this business, I was doing cabinets and countertops. This was 25 years ago, and I would always see the owner or the builder come through at the end of the day, and I said, that's the guy who's really making this happen. I need to become like that guy. So, what I don't outsource is the connections with the sellers and the actual finding of creating the opportunity to create the deal.
Yeah,
that's where I really make the most amount of money is utilizing my expertise in that area. And otherwise, stuff like cleaning out houses and doing roofs and all the rest of it, use your subcontractors, and that's what they're there for.
Jeff, let's take a step back. Clearly you've got some knowledge on creating deals, putting deals together, flipping, leases, rental, investment properties as a whole. Take a step back and tell us a little bit about how you got started, what your background is, what you do.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible, but essentially, I grew up here in the Atlanta area, grew up in Sandy Springs. My dad was in a corporate position with Waffle House. He was in charge of real estate for a long time, so I feel like as a kid, I was always driving around with him, looking at some lot on the side of Highway 92 and, dreaming dreams of future Waffle House greatness. But I ended up getting into the business doing cabinets and countertops, like I said. My brother and I then started a business, kind of timber leasing and stuff like that, specifically with Christmas trees. So that was real estate involved. When the crash happened in '08, we started buying some houses and making all the mistakes you could ever make in real estate investing. And then around 2017, I said, there's more money doing this than there is in timber or what have you. I need to really commit to this and really jumped in with both feet.
So what are some of those mistakes that you made?
Oh, gosh. I mean, how much time you got? Well, I've put the wrong tenant in properties. I've bought at the wrong price. I've done deals with people who I should not have done deals with.
As far as partners or the seller?
Partners. I have not done good due diligence on the property, and you find unpleasant surprises like, oh, the septic tank is leaking directly into the waterway. That's a problem. So again, you are going to make mistakes in this business. There absolutely is no way of avoiding them.
Yeah, rentals and putting the wrong tenant in there is definitely one of the first mistakes I made when I was, in the long-term rental game. And now any of my long-term rents, I really do a lot more due diligence. I have all the tools. I'm a mortgage lender, so it makes sense. I should be able to determine if this gentleman or family or woman can maintain the payments. But initially, when I first got started, all I was worried about was covering that mortgage payment.
Right.
That's all I wanted to happen and that was really the wrong mentality. And so I definitely learned my lessons with dispossessory and going through that process. I had a gang in my house down in Marietta at one point, so that was pretty awesome. And then even to this day, I say to this day, but a couple years ago, one of the mistakes I made was on the building side, bought a lot, and there was one little section of the community of the subdivision that was sectioned off for whatever reason to go to a different school district. That turned out to be quite a problem for me for literally years. It took to get rid of that particular property.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those where I didn't do the due diligence as in depth as I thought I did. And it cost me for sure.
It's always something,
Yeah.
I've done it. Last year we had a lease renewal on a property, and I think we had to wait 90 days before I found the right tenant. And my agent was ready to kill me at that point because I'm sitting here going through applications, and I'm saying nope. And then I finally found the one. I said, yes, this one will work. And she's been a great tenant. She's been awesome. And you have to just like with real estate deals, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs before you can find the prince among them. That's like, all right, this is but yeah, it's a very challenging business in that regard, with always being able to check all your boxes.
Sure.
Having said that, if you go into it saying, look, I'm going to try and guard against all the bad decisions, but I'm not going to allow analysis paralysis to set in and not do something.
What about the Atlanta area in general? What do you think about that as just sort of an investment vehicle, if you will, or a place to invest your capital in real estate? Atlanta Metro, North Metro. I mean, you do a lot in South Metro as well.
I pretty much will go anywhere as long as there's an opportunity. I hate to say it, but if there's an opportunity for me to make money, you will find me on the front steps. But no, I'm very bullish on Atlanta Metro. I'm very bullish on the whole state for the most part. You got to get down to fundamentals, and Atlanta, we always are having net migration coming into this city. Our traffic is god awful. I'm not going to deny that, but it's a good sign because people keep moving to this city. I don't think Georgia. We seem to have a government that's very pro business. They want businesses to move to the state. Yep. So if you take Atlanta Metro, and if you really think big, I mean, it goes from Chattanooga to Macon, Columbus, that whole area. I mean, it's just there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in this state right now.
Well, it's funny, the net migration, literally the Census Bureau just came out just recently, and the net migration for the state of Georgia. Now, obviously, it's been declining since 2021, but it's still positive. It was like around $30,000 net folks moving to the state of Georgia. Not as high as some of the other ones, but certainly still positive and stayed positive for a long time for a lot of the reasons that you're explaining right now.
Absolutely.
What about the whole cranes, traffic, and you kind of touched on this, but cranes, cribs or carriers or strollers and traffic. I mean, those are signs of growth. Right?
There's signs of growth, and I mean, I hate it as much. I mean, I grew up here. I hate it as much as the next guy. I mean, I had to drive around at 9 a.m. yesterday, and I'm trying to do all my shortcuts, and all my shortcuts are jam packed. So I mean, it's not good. But at the same time, what I keep saying is that you can go further and further out in the Atlanta metro area, and you'll find just as much opportunity as you would in the inner city. I actually kind of like that. I stay on the outer ring of Atlanta when I'm looking for properties, and there's plenty of them out there.
So pro business, where do you find, what are some of the tools that you use to determine new industry moving into an area? Is there anything specific that you can elaborate on?
Yeah, I mean, most of the county websites, they like to brag about what's coming into the city. Here's what we got going on. The Chamber of Commerce like to talk about that. There's always a lot of announcements. Now, I say that, and you got to realize something. They love making the announcements. Right. You got to go out there and kick the stumps. I mean, all right, are they actually building this thing?
Right.
Because you'll find announcements all the time about jobs coming in. Doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story that blew my mind is, Amazon builds these distribution centers everywhere, and there's one up in Cartersville, and I won't say who told me this, but a former Amazon employee said, "Yeah, they just build these things, and they have no intention of ever opening them up. It's just in case they have a surge in demand." And it blew my mind. I said, they just build a warehouse and they just let it sit. And he said, yeah, that's what they do.
So you have this influx of construction, maybe temporary workers. It seems like there's all this business, but then in the end, there's no need to even fill it.
There's nothing there. I mean, with that Amazon plant, I heard about it coming in. I did a long piece of due diligence on a property, spent, significant money seeing if this would work as a development, and then nothing ever happened. So, I mean, these expected jobs that were going to be there all of a sudden not there. So
let's talk about that for a second. Let's get maybe a little bit off topic, but distribution centers, battery factories, a lot of these are automated.
Yes.
The majority of them are automated, frankly. And we're going to that route. That doesn't mean that just because they're building that there's going to be this influx of employment.
Yeah, you'll find these big announcements, and for multi-thousand square foot warehouse, then it's like, and it will provide 75 jobs,
Right, yeah.
So-
Well, the perfect example is the one up in, is it Kingston, right outside of Cartersville in between
Yes.
Rome?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's this massive battery factory or something along those lines. And I mean, hundreds of thousands of square foot. And literally, I think there's like 50.
Well, it's craziness.
And not only that, though, it's actually a Korean company, and they're only hiring Koreans or something along those lines, which, just paying attention to who's actually developing it, and are they actually going to hire locally, or are they importing folks to work these jobs?
Yeah, I mean, get your Duolingo app, learn Korean. The fundamentals of it, though, still remain the same. I mean, with real estate investing, is that, before anything else, people do need a roof over their heads.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just now, the society at large, as we're heading to automation, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, all this stuff. It's going to be a game changer in terms of how it affects our economy. But in the meantime, people are still going to need a roof over their head.
Now, we haven't. I don't think we've had this discussion, so this might be a little of a curveball. But have we talked about pad split at all?
No, but I'm familiar with pad split.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm thinking about just on this same sort of line of thinking. We have a lot of temporary workers, folks that necessarily aren't going to be there for years, but maybe a year or two, and you can turn a 3-2 into a 6-2, and really sort of get that temporary living situation, and they're paying week by week. Is that a valid investment or opportunity, or is it something that?
I'll say what I say when everyone queries me about short-term rental, pad split, all that stuff. I like the model. I think it's great. The issue being is that, and this will get on one of my other hobby horses, is just there is no provision in the zoning code for something like pad split. And I don't want to speak for pad split, but I mean, I know that their attitude just seems to be, well, put a stop to it,
Yeah.
and counties have limited resources, so they can only go after so many things.
Right.
I think the cash flow is great. I think that it's definitely something that if you're looking for cash flow and you don't really are, and you're one of those people who doesn't really care what the county says, then go after it. And same thing with midterm rental, short-term rental. I mean, you can get good cash flow, but the limitation right now in all real estate development really is the zoning is just, it is what it is. It changes every year. It's getting more and more strict, and some of it is in response to property owners' demands, owner occupants' demands in the area. Sure. But some of it is just Federal Register number 1365 came up with a new, and they change the rules all the time, and it's just that is adding to the costs of real estate.
Yeah.
And so if you want to get real estate cheaper again, that's something that's going to have to change.
Yeah, the pad split model, the same thing. I love it. I looked into it a while back. Actually, it was when I first started talking, I was like, oh, this is terrible. This is a terrible idea. And then I started looking at the cash flow. I'm like, oh shoot. But I do not have any. But yeah, it does seem like they just sort of, we'll see if they're going to call, if the county's going to step in, then we'll adjust accordingly. But
and also, I mean, who gets the phone call when you have 6 different people living in the same house? Who gets the phone call when neighbor or room occupant number 1 has a problem with room occupant number 3? And
God forbid there's some sort of terrible situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's everything comes with a price.
It does. It does. All right. What about manufactured housing? What do you think about that? And you've got here, you gave me a list of a couple different things, and you got a case study that you listed. Talk to me about that particular situation.
Well, this situation was an interesting one, and it just kind of shows when people ever ask me, how do you find deals? This is kind of my exhibit A of finding a deal, and even better, creating a deal. Because this was a property up in Bartow County, and the way that I found this property was that a tenant at one of my current houses called me, and he said, hey, man, we got a problem. And I said, okay. And I immediately was thinking about the house. I said, what's the problem? And he said, well, I'm in jail, but I can still pay the rent. And I said, okay, let's correct this. you have a problem. I do not have a problem, but you have a problem. And all right, what's going on? And so he explained it to me, and that essentially he had an issue with his girlfriend's neighbor who was harassing his girlfriend. And, words were exchanged, and, one thing led to another. And, I am actually in sympathy with my tenant at this point. But as I was talking to him about it, I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want my girlfriend to move in with me at the house, and I know I needed to call you. And this is, again, the importance of tenant selection. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm not just going to move her in. I'm asking you, Mr. Landlord, if you could help. And I said, yeah. We can talk about it. I said, well, let me ask you this, though. Where is your girlfriend living right now? He said, she's in this mobile home. I said, well, is she renting it? And he says, no, she owns it. And I said, I'd love to help. How can we make this work? So we met at a Waffle House, and the girlfriend explained to me, she said, look, I've got a neighbor who's a real jerk. He's harassing me, all the rest of it. I have this mobile home. I own the mobile home free and clear, but I have, $16,000 in credit card debt, and I got another, it added up to like $35,000 in liabilities. I need a solution to this. And I said, well, in the event that I could purchase this mobile home from you, would you be willing to consider some options?
And did that include the land?
It included the land.
Okay.
Yeah, titled on the land. And so we discussed it, and what I ended up doing was just giving her 3 different options in terms of how I could make this work. Because she said, I want $65,000 in cash. And I said, well, let's talk about it. And each one of my options was a way to get her the number, either to get her the number she wanted, mm-hmm. or to kind of lower my risk in terms of the amount of money that I had exposed. And it really was a open negotiation in terms of doing it. And just through my experience, the first thing I threw out was, hey, can I do a lease option with you? Can I just rent it from you and then buy it later on? And I'll give you $2,000, and I'll fix up the shed at the rental house, and but will that work? I don't really want to do that. I said, okay, well, would you sell or finance it to me? I could give you $15,000 down, pay off your credit card debt, and then we could make this a note, and I could pay you over a longer period of time, mm-hmm. and make it work that way. And I said, well, or I can just pay you cash. And she said, well, I really want to pay you cash. I said, well, how does $42,000 sound? And she said, we can do that. And all right, we can get that deal done, and made it work that way. And so that happens a lot. You can throw out a bunch of options at people, and a lot of times what they come down to is just give me cash, and that's fine.
Sure.
But having that experience of being able to minimize my risk while still solving the problem is what I'm always trying to shoot to do.
So one of the points or thoughts that I took out of that story, that scenario, again, problem solving, you listen to what the seller needed, and you have to have that open and honest discussion with them. And maybe it doesn't happen right out of the gate, mm-hmm. but you have to circle back and try to figure out what exactly is that need. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. The need, I got to get away from my neighbor. No ifs, right. Ends, or buts. I want to be gone with this problem.
So she's motivated.
Tomorrow. Exactly. Extremely motivated seller. And at that point, and from the very beginning, we started off with $65,000, mm-hmm. and I got her down to $42,000 because mm-hmm. Hey, cash is king. Mm-hmm. You can move in tomorrow into your boyfriend's rental, mm-hmm. and absolutely no skin off your back. We just need to sign some paperwork and we'll get it done. And so I focused on the problem, and I showed it to you in my presentation. I just do a T-bar where it just says, hey, you're right here in this present position. I can get you to this future position. And here's the ways that I can do it. Mm-hmm. And, but you just need to tell me which is the one that's going to solve your mm-hmm. problem as quickly as possible. And 9 times out of 10 it is cash, mm-hmm. but sometimes people are willing to look at other angles and other avenues.
But it was interesting to again, cash is king, but you had multiple ways mm-hmm. to sort of limit your cash exposure. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: did you have a partner on that one?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So even if it's a 50% partner, you're only out 22.5, right?
Absolutely. And the greatest part about it is that, with deals like that, when you show people the cash flow and how it could work in terms of the amount of risk that they have, I never have any problems with people coming up to sign on to those deals.
How important is it to let people know what you do?
We're talking about the tax man?
No.
No. All right. Very important that I let other people in the community know what it is I'm doing. No, I like telling people all the time. When you have a problem property, come see me, because I can. And people say, "What's a problem property?" I said, "You'll know it when you see it." And it's the pain points. I mean, it's when people have stuff that's locked up and they don't have an easy way. For instance, the opportunity I was just telling you about with the mobile home, it would have been hard to get a traditional loan on that mobile home. It would have been hard to get a real estate agent to understand the dynamics of a mobile home sale. Yeah. So, it was a tailor-made deal for something like what I do.
Yeah, I think it's, if you're telling people out there, whether it's real estate agents, networking groups, just in general conversation, that you're willing and this is what you're looking for, and you're telling them what you want, you're probably looking at a heck of a lot more deals, and obviously than you're purchasing. But you have to be able to pull the trigger on something so people know that you're serious.
Yeah, it's funny in a way. Real estate agents really aren't a great referral source for me, because I talk to them all the time, and I love it when they bring me what they consider to be deals, and I just say, no, look, you're better off listing this on the MLS. I know you're trying to do an off-market deal, but you're better off listing this on the MLS. My usual line is, some idiot will buy it. I'm not that idiot, but somebody will overpay for this property and put way too much money into it, and they'll walk away wiser from doing a skinny deal. But it works for real estate agents, and that's what they should do, and they have a fiduciary duty to the seller to take advantage of that. A lot of real estate opportunities are these ones that the real estate agent can't figure out for whatever reason. Yeah. They don't have an easy solution at hand.
But too, I think it's, real estate agents may not be the best referral source, but it's certainly a referral source, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, listen, I love real estate agents, and the ones who understand the business, who understand what it takes to get a deal to the closing table. I'm dear friends with, and I have them call me all the time and say, look, let's talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that I do business with on a regular on the mortgage side of things, I'm always letting them know, like, hey, if you see something out there, they know what I'm after, and that's more longer term rental. That's kind of my game. Sure. I don't really do a whole lot of flipping every now and again, but I have had them come to me with plenty of opportunities, and most of them, to your point, they did not cash flow. They didn't make sense. They wanted me to overpay for it, but several of them. I did say yes, and it turned out to be a great long-term transaction. So, and that just keeps that line of communication open for future opportunities.
100%. I mean, hey, it might not be this one, but let's keep the conversation going, and I can assure you'll get both barrels of unvarnished truth about what I think about your property, because you need to know that. I mean, unfortunately, there is a lot of real estate agents don't get the investment side of things. And I always take the opportunity to educate. Some would say overeducate agents on what, hey, listen, you need to think about the market like this. And if you can, if you do come across these properties that, need extra work and stuff like that, you have to know your numbers at the end of the day to protect your seller.
What advice would you give to somebody that, like, hey, I'm doing this not necessarily as my full-time job, so I want to hire a real estate agent to sort of do a lot of that legwork for you? Would you advise working with somebody that, how do you determine that they know and understand the investment side of real estate?
That's a big question. I think that you really have to vet a lot of real estate agents to figure out if they actually get it, and you have to you yourself, when you get into real estate, you have to understand why you're wanting to make a real estate investment. I love real estate. I think it's a great investment, but you really need to think about, well, I really want profits, more than anything else. Is I want to get profit more than anything else. Okay, you're thinking about getting into the flipping game. Okay, so if you want to get into flips, that's a whole different ball game than getting into rentals. And flips, you got to think about the far side of that, which is taxes, and you're going to be getting dinged on a short-term capital gain rate. So I mean, those type questions are what you have to balance out in your mind, and or hey, I don't have any time. For a professional who's making a lot of money, I don't have a lot of time to look for this, and I don't really want to work with a real estate agent. I don't really want to become a landlord. Well, you can lend. I mean, at that point, you can make money. You can make interest on your money by loaning to the guys who always need capital. Yeah. So I mean, there really are so many ways to do it.
There really are. It's a great opportunity, and I will say that for those that don't know, short-term capital gains is less than 12 months, and it's a 20 or 25%. I don't know what the 2025 rules are.
It's more than I want to pay.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say I had a flip in 2023. And it did phenomenal, and it was really like one of those things. But it reminded me when I filed my taxes about like, wow, yeah, I did. It was calculated into it 100%. But when I actually saw my Schedule E and I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, that's where if you're not paying attention to that, you can get burned.
Oh, yeah. Take your anticipated profit, and you better be pretty good with your numbers. Your anticipated profit divided by 2. Yeah, that's what I usually do, just to be on the safe side, because there's going to be stuff that comes up along the way that surprises you.
Yeah, the any budget that you put together, add 20%, right?
A line item on my budget is called F&F. It stands for frickin' frack. It's just like this. This money goes somewhere. I don't know to what.
Now, Jeff, you're working on a network. You're not working on. You have a group that meets on a regular basis. Tell us a little bit about what that is, where they meet, and then we'll, of course, put everything in the description below, along with some of the slides that you put.
Oh, great!
You provided me, like your T-bar, solution, and some of the other things that you provided. So, networking group. If you're in the Atlanta area or you're visiting the Atlanta area. Where can they catch up with you?
Well, we try and hold it once a month. Obviously, we're not doing it this month, but we're going to start back up in February. We just basically hold I call it the Atlanta Real Estate Roundtable. It's a group of investors, agents, contractors, lenders, people who've just started, people who are experienced. We get together at the Twin Peaks in Kennesaw. We're looking to get another one started down in Buckhead, and hopefully a few other events throughout this year, but crawl before you walk. But what we do is we have about an hour of networking where we meet, we talk about what we're doing, this is what's going on, and then I run through a case study, or I have another investor run through a case study, just kind of discussing, hey, here's the ins and outs of a deal. Let's break this deal down and see why it worked, or even and the more informative ones, or why it didn't work, and just kind of show people with real live examples of this is the way that you invest in real estate, and here's the stuff to think about.
So I think there's a lot of folks out there that get intimidated or whatever, or don't want to go to these networking groups because they feel like they don't have necessarily the knowledge. But I think that's the wrong mentality for obvious reasons. But people want to share the mistakes and the wins that they've had at these groups.
I cannot emphasize more that people need to go to these type events to learn. I mean, if you think if you think education is costly, try miseducation. I tell that from experience. So, having the opportunity to go to these seminars or meetups or whatever it might be, you get a chance to learn. And trust me, I was in their shoes when I first started off. I had no idea what I was doing one way or another. And it's only been through education that's gotten me to where I've got a viable business for this month.
When you step into that real estate investment world, it is a little scary. It's not a bad idea to have a partner that can help hold your hand. Hopefully, they're experienced. When I started my real estate investment journey, I had, like I mentioned, I had a partner for the first 7 properties that we did, and we had no investment experience as far as real estate, and it was during the crash. And really, I didn't have to be some sort of expert at that time. A lot of people sort of claim that they're these real estate investors and experts, But if you invested at that time, you did not have to be a genius. You
No.
just had to have the testicular fortitude
That's right.
to jump in and do it because you believed that the market had gotten closer at a bottom, and that the upside potential was, going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, don't overthink it. I mean, if you're ever if you have an opportunity where you're sitting here having to run multiple spreadsheets trying to see where the profit is, you probably don't have a deal. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the long and the short of it. And so, having the education component to sit there and talk with other investors, that gives you the ability just to exercise your judgment. And I'm not saying, again, there are guys out there who will do deals that I won't do.
Sure.
And likewise, they won't do my deals,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's there's no right or wrong way to do it, but having that exposure is what really gets you to learn and get involved.
Yeah, and being part of those groups is obviously the connections. But I think, if you're a first-time investor, having those private lenders, those hard money lender connections is enormous.
Absolutely.
Because they want to lend. They want to put their capital to work. So I can't recommend going to any of the networking groups enough, especially yours, and look forward to joining in your group here in the next coming months. And Jeff, where can everybody find you? What's the best way to get in contact with you if they want to connect, if they want to educate themselves, find you on a website, phone number, all the things?
I've got a website. It's godobcreek.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. My cell phone number is 404-444-6643. You can call me anytime. I'm probably going to regret saying that, but that's fine. But yeah, you can find me. I'm always out and about, and yeah, I will talk to anybody. If anyone's got a real estate problem, give me a call.
And he solves real estate problems. So if you have a real estate problem and you can't solve it, my man Jeff over here can help you solve it. That is guaranteed, because that's another guaranteed interview. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.